Hi everybody, how's it going today? Thanks for watching another video. I'm in our milk house here where our milk tanks are. Milk tank, milk silo over here. So yesterday our milk inspectors, both the milk inspector that comes on the farm here and then her supervisor, and then also somebody from the FDA, would be a federal inspector essentially. We're here to inspect our farm. Our milk inspector from the States, she comes probably 3-4 times a year. It's unannounced, but you can kind of expect her to be here about every 3-4 months. And the FDA, they come periodically. It's not really announced either, or not really, you know, they don't warn us when they're coming. But from the FDA, they come maybe every 2 years or so, every year, 2 years. I don't know if there's really a schedule to it. I think they just stop in the farms periodically, unannounced. They have a whole checklist of things that they're looking at. They look at everything on the farm, from milk lines, milking equipment. They open things up, take things apart, look inside everything, look inside the receivers in the basement. They're looking at the parlor, if it's clean, the cabinets, the walls, the floors, the holding area where the cows are. Everything needs to be kept clean, and they also look in the barns, look at the cows in the barns, look at the water troughs. You need to have a specific water trough. Look at how clean the cows are. They look at our vet office, what kind of medications we're using, if they're labeled properly. They're looking at even things like our bathrooms, make sure the bathrooms are clean, make sure that the doors that need to be closed have door closers on them, and that they close the door fully. And you start with 100 points, and every time they find something that they don't approve of, or it's not according to code, depending on how serious it is, then it gets deducted from that 100 points. I think yesterday would have been the FDA inspection, and he wrote us down for having some cracks and broken up floor in the milk house here, and I'll show you guys that. I'm going to repair that here today actually. So this is something that I probably should have done a little bit ago, but I always like to put off until they tell us we need to do it, because every time we patch it, it'll last for a year, maybe 2 years, and it just becomes a hole again, just because this floor is always wet. There's never really a good time to do this and let it dry. So we're just about to start milking here again in the afternoon. So the wash is completed, hose is hooked up to the silo already. So when they start milking here, they're gonna open the valve and start pumping into the silo. And there won't be any rotting water on this floor for the next maybe 8 hours or so. And at that point the silo will be full. They'll have to switch to tank 1. So then we're going to get some milk on the floor. We actually have to wash that milk down, so we'll get water on the floor. So we essentially have about 8 hours here for me to get these holes here patched and get them dry enough that water can run across them. So I'm kind of show you guys a little closer. So I took some towels and kind of cleaned the water out of the insides of these. There's a little water in there. I'm going to have to get another towel here. But this floor is extremely hard to fix properly just because of the time window. So we've had this floor fixed professionally a couple times already. The last time was probably 2 years ago, maybe 3 years ago already. And the majority of this floor, so we did the whole floor in here, and the majority is actually in really good shape. And there isn't much kind of over there where they're bringing in the milk hose in and out. They're always dropping the end. Falls on the floor, breaks the concrete off. Kind of right along the wall there. When we used to have 2 tanks like this here. When we took this tank out, that floor was actually a little loose there, so we chipped that off so we wouldn't have milk sitting under it. That's actually not a problem over there because of the water. The biggest thing is pooling water. We're not allowed to have pooling water, and these are holes here, so water pools in them. If you ask me, it really doesn't have anything to do with milk quality, but it's in the rule book, I guess, so we're going to attempt to patch it here. We will patch it, just a matter of how long it's going to last this time. They didn't write us down for it, and you can't even see it now, but where the tank meets the wall there, that seam, I don't know if maybe we can see it on this side. No, so that seam there, so right now it's sealed up because the tank is warm, there's no milk in it. When we put milk in it, the tank is cold, obviously, 37 degrees Celsius or 37 degrees Fahrenheit. That tank contracts a little, and then there's just a minute air gap there, or light gap, so you can see light coming in through that seal. They didn't write us up for it, but they pretty much told me if you don't fix that, we'll write you up for it next time. So I do have some caulk with me also, but I'm gonna wait until there's milk in there and that tank is contracted and try to fill that up. But as you can imagine, especially in the winter time, that tank contracts more because this metal is cold. And the silicone is really hard at that point because of the cold temperatures. So then you get that gap there. We have silicone this tank probably 30 times over the last 10 years. But it's just something we have to keep doing to keep them happy. But if those were the only complaints they had, then it definitely was a good inspection. And they actually only wrote us down for these milk cracks. Everything else was clean. Barns look good, cows look clean. The parlor was clean. No issues there. So I shouldn't complain about that, because this will be an easy fix, and we'll be able to keep milking cows, keep sending milk to the plant. So I've got this concrete here. This is fast setting concrete, and then I've got a liquid that I actually mix it with a little bit of water. So I've got a bucket here, got my drill with a mixer on it. So I'm gonna get these holes a little bit drier here, mix that stuff up and get it in the holes, get it level, and then yeah, hopefully it'll be dry enough by 8-9 o'clock tonight that it's not gonna run off right away or yeah, rub off. But there's a lot of chemicals going over this floor. Obviously, every time the tanks and silo and the milk equipment's washed, it goes through cycles of detergent and acid, and then sanitizer, rinse. So that chemicals going over the floor, that's really hard on the floor. And also just the fact of having running water always going over the floor, it never gets time to fully dry. But it is what it is. We're just gonna try to patch it as best as we can here. I've got it dried out. Probably won't do any mixing of me actually doing this, because that stuff sets up really fast. I have about 10 minutes to get it mixed and put in those holes and patched up before it starts setting up. And I've got the fan on full speed, and we're actually going to start milking here in just a couple minutes, so it's going to probably get a little loud in here. But I'll show you guys what it looks like after I get done here. Got it mixed up here. Looks pretty much like concrete. I've got it mixed pretty thick. Try to help it dry out a little quicker, hopefully. finished up here. It's already dry on top. Probably 5 minutes after finishing up here. It doesn't take long for that stuff to get hard. I did have a little extra, but I did that on purpose because I didn't want to be short and have to mix a little bit while it was setting up. I think I'll maybe continue this video tomorrow, show you guys how it turned out, and then maybe show you some of the things that they're looking at. I didn't walk around with them yesterday, but sometimes I do if it works out. So I kind of have an idea of the places they like to look, what they're looking for, and yeah, I'd like to show you guys that. So this gutter here, there used to be a stainless steel trough in here. That's how it was originally. But they didn't do a very good job sealing it in the concrete, so we had milk get under that gutter. So we had to tear that stainless steel trough out. And we've pretty much had trouble with it since then. It's just so difficult to get this repaired properly. Because we never shut down for more than 45 minutes. And yeah, like right now, this is the longest time we have to work on this. And it's roughly 8 hours. So it doesn't give you much time at all to, if you want to break concrete out, re-pour it, re-put a trough in. I mean, it's just not possible. But there's always, when the tanks are washing, there's water coming up down the outside of the tank, and there's water coming out of the outside of this vat when we're washing this, and I mean, this equipment has to be washed. So just have to deal with it, patch it up, and hopefully we'll be good again for another couple of years. And if not, we'll just patch it up again. It's the next day here. The wash system for the parlor is running here at the moment, just shut off here. It's gonna fill one more time, I think. I thought I'd show you guys the floor here. Looks like that patch is holding up so far. It's hard. So we'll see how long it lasts. And the tank has milk in it now. And I don't know if you guys will be able to quite see it, but there's a little, you can see a little bit of an air gap, a little bit of an opening just on the top of the tank there. It's really small, but that's what they want me to fill with caulking, so I'll probably do that here this afternoon. So the tank has milk in it now, so the tank is cold, and it's actually a little colder outside too than it was yesterday. Just with those two things, that tank shrinks enough to leave a gap there. We'll put some new silicone on there, and we'll probably keep it shut for the summer, but in the winter, when it gets cold, we're probably gonna have the same issue again. But at least we tried, and we can tell them we tried. So I wanted to show you guys a few of the things that the milk inspectors look at when they do an inspection on our farm. So typically the first thing they do is they come into this room here, look at the equipment here, depending on if there's milk in the tank in the silo. If there's no milk in there, then we'll look inside the tank typically, make sure the tanks are clean or the silo is clean. Look inside the receiver. Sometimes they'll open up the filters or some of the pipes or even the pump. But I don't think they do that often. Typically a telltale sign is the receiver. If the receiver is clean, there's a pretty good chance the rest of the system is clean. If the receiver is not clean, then the wash system is obviously not working correctly. And the same goes in the basement. The first place I always look myself is in the receivers. If the receivers are clean, then typically there isn't an issue. They also look at the milk hauling records and also the graphs. So they also look at the temperature graphs on the milk tank and the silo, and we have to keep those graphs in the milk house here, I think for at least 6 months or maybe a year. I don't know. I don't throw them out very often. We probably have more than a year's worth in there now. These are 1 week graphs. So temperature's 38 degrees Fahrenheit at the moment. And you can see we went through a wash here. And it didn't have milk in it until that point where it comes pretty much straight down. Then it's cooling at that point. And now Now the tank's just holding it at 38 degrees essentially, so that cooler will kick on if necessary, but typically when it gets down to that temperature, it'll stay there for quite a long time. But they look at those because we need to wash our tank and our silo minimum every 3 days, but we wash them for sure every 2 days on our farm. Every time they're emptied, they're washed. So they look at those to make sure that we're consistently washing our silo and tank. Nothing else really in here that they look at. I mean, they're just visually looking at everything to make sure that the outside of the equipment is clean, the inside is clean. We'll head down into the basement and take a look at the receivers down there, the milk lines. So I'm in the basement now, and the wash was just running. So upstairs there's wash cups. This line goes to those wash cups. This is the milk line that goes to the milking unit. So we put the milking units in the wash cups, and essentially it's circulating. So this comes from upstairs out of that big receiver that I showed you, and then this goes down all the way down to the far end to receivers, and then gets pumped back up to that big receiver upstairs. So it's essentially circulating, and it's kind of pulsating. The milking units are pulsating upstairs, but there's also a jet of air that comes through this line. I don't know, it's every 30 seconds or so. So there's a valve that closes the wash line. So there's two milk lines here. They both run down to that side, but every 30 seconds one of these lines shuts off, and then it sends a slug of air all the way around from that side back to the end and back down to that side again, and that's essentially helping scrub the pipes with that blast of air to keep these pipes clean. And at the end of those pipes there's an elbow. I will open that up periodically to look inside there, but the main thing to look at, I mean, just looking at the units themselves, if they're visually not covered in residue, then they're good. Sometimes you can get like a gasket up in here or in here. If they get a little leak, you'll start to get some milk buildup on here, and that's obviously not good because that's not going to get washed right. But typically, I mean, we're changing these gaskets all the time, or I mean, on a schedule essentially. And typically we don't have any issues with those, but on occasion that you do, you will see milk on the outside of this unit, which is not what we want. So these are the receivers. There's some probes in here that run the pump for this, but I always look in here, and I'm sure that the inspectors looked in here also when they were here. Need a flashlight. Kind of look down in there. Kind of difficult to point the camera in the right spot there, but if they ever get dirty, typically where I see it is right underneath the two lines that come into that receiver. You start to get it's almost like a fat buildup you can get there, and sometimes what that can mean is that slug of air that's coming through maybe there's this air injector right here. There's a valve in there. I've had that partially plug up before. You run soap and hot water through that to kind of clear that out. But what also happens on occasion, there's a plunger in here, and I can open that up. It's a good chance that the milk inspector opened this up also, because this is also a spot they like to look because it's easy to get to. So there's this plunger, kind of hard to do one-handed, but there's a spring in here, and this goes in and out essentially. Get my flashlight. Make sure that that's clean. But this is what's controlling that slug of air, or sending that slug of air around. So this will shut this off essentially. Then that blast of air goes around this side. The air comes in through this. There's a filter on here, and then comes back around and into the receiver, and that also helps clean this receiver, so that the faster that slug comes around, the more that water explodes in this receiver, and then gets kind of cleans everything essentially. But yeah, those are, if you have, or chemical, if you have an issue with a chemical pump and you're not getting enough chemical in your, enough detergent, enough acid in your wash solution, that can also give trouble. Not things that I'm looking at every day, but I like to do it once a week, for sure every 2 weeks, just to make sure that the system is washing correctly, because if it's not, then our bacteria count in our milk is going to start creeping up. And it's easy to keep the pipes clean once they're clean, but once they're dirty, it's almost impossible to get them clean again. Then you have to get a brush out and scrub the receivers, and definitely would want to stay away from doing as much hand cleaning in here as possible, because the more we can keep this stuff sealed, the better. But we do, I mean, if they're dirty, then you have to clean them, so sometimes we do have to do that. So I'm up in the parlor here now. So these are those wash cups that I was talking about. So they slide in when we're milking, they slide out for wash. Stick the units in there, and then they just circulate that water essentially. So that milk inspector is also looking in the parlor here, make sure that the units are clean, the cabinets are clean, the walls, floor. Just in general, that the area here is clean where the cows are being milked. And they'll also look at how clean the cows are themselves, that they're not coming in with their completely covered with manure on the udders, that their legs are completely covered in manure. And they'll also go look in the pens as well, just to make sure that the pens are being cleaned regularly, that the cows look clean. All those things go into good milk quality. The only frustrating thing for me always is that they don't look at our milk tank results, or our somatic cell counts, or bacteria results. Those are things that I'm looking at for milk quality, and if those are low, I mean, that's a good sign that all those things that I talked about, milk lines are clean, cows are clean, guys are doing a good job with cleaning cows in the parlor with milk prep, post dipping. If you have good quality in the tank, that's a sign that we're doing all those things and that all the equipment is clean. It's sometimes frustrating when they write you down for things that aren't necessarily having to do with directly with milk quality, but I guess that's their job, and I'm glad I don't have to do their job, because I'm sure that they get a lot of comments from farmers specifically on things like that. There's probably several things that I missed that they look at. I mean, they also look at the bathrooms on the other side of the building here. They look in the break room where the guys have lunch. Make sure those are clean, that there's soap by the bathrooms, things like that, towels. Yeah, look in the barns, look at the water troughs. I'm sure I missed several things, but kind of get the idea what they're looking at when they come on our farm. I think I'll probably end this video here. If you guys have questions, comments, post them down below, and appreciate you guys watching, and hopefully we'll see you in the next video.